Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of APB. So in this episode, Gideon gets a threat sent to him, and it's not just to him, it's getting sent to a lot of other precincts around, but obviously, it's like a guy in a mask shows up in a video and is threatening Gideon. He's like, oh, I'll expose all your secrets and stuff like that, which Gideon is quickly being like, nah, it's nothing to be taken serious. Conrad's like, we don't want to take that chance. It's like, obviously for your safety, but more so than anything, you being here might put the precinct as a target. So obviously Murphy takes him off to one of the many places that Gideon has. Obviously he has the penthouse. He ends up talking about the fact that it's more of a party place, which I appreciate the line of being like, yeah, haven't really, fact of the matter is, had a situation with Tyson spilling beer on a Da Vinci painting or something like that. And he's like, and Murphy's like, wait, what? You mean like Mike Tyson? He's like, no, Neil deGrasse. I was like, you get them, get sciencey people like drunk a little, get a little alcohol in them, and they're just like, ugh. But obviously throughout the episode, you have this situation where it's like multiple things are happening. There's people around town with masks on, one going from one to another, that basically it's like, first there's a situation where like these guys with red masks show up in a building and they start dropping off these backpacks. So it's essentially everyone's thinking like bombs or something like that. Then you also see them kind of around town, but then them being around town is all just kind of like, they're actually almost you can't help but get noticed that basically they're all within vicinity of the 13th district. So it's like, are they planning some attack? Obviously, it's really interesting because his entire time, like even from the very beginning, Brent is very uneasy about the whole situation. He's probably the only one to like everyone has that feeling like something's not right. Him and Conrad have it the biggest, like the most. But it's like, because Brent, from the very beginning, he's like, it kind of, for obvious reasons, it's like a situation where it's like someone's hiding behind a mask, kind of being threatening for the sake of their own beliefs and stuff like that. It's like, what kind of person does some crap like that? So obviously this is all a very big distraction to keep the 13th from realizing they've lost contact with Murphy and Gideon. And Gideon's, obviously this is like a very smart house, but the fact of the matter is that these people he's up against end up shutting everything down. So it's hard for him to get in contact with people. So basically him and Murphy like shack up inside of like a hidden room of his, which is actually a secret lab of his, which, cause at the end of the, because this has all been about exposing secrets of Gideon's, and obviously it can make you wonder, like, what is this secret that Gideon's got? Like, I mean, obviously at first he doesn't really take much validity to it, but I'm like, what kind of secrets are they willing to expose from you? What secrets do you have? And then the fact is that he was in the lab and everything, and Murphy starts asking questions like, okay, you have your own, like, division and stuff like that. You have your own building to do research and stuff and developing. It's like, so why do you have this lab? What are you doing down here that you don't want to do at Reeves Industry? And he's like, quickly changing the subject. It's like, okay, that's not shady at all. So basically people with masks and stuff showed up. I mean, the reason why they were there in the first place is because people came to his place with like guns willing to kill, most likely threaten him, but it seems like under the circumstances they probably would have killed him if given an opportunity to. Murphy wouldn't probably obviously go kind of gunfight him a little bit, but it's like those three people are very armed. You've got one gun. It's like, he's like, yeah, I know how awesome it'd be to see you kind of go like badass and like take on three like armed suspect in like my house and everything. How awesome that be. But right now it's like, doing that might get you as well as me killed, if that matters at all. So, but it ends up getting finally revealed what this device is that Gideon, like what is sparking all of this, that this person who made this video is talking about. It turns out that basically Gideon made a device. He was working on something experimental that basically tracked down anyone, that basically it pulls vast amounts of data about anyone. You can find anything about anyone based on information that it pulls from all over the place. And now Murphy even used her own name, but it like pulled out private pictures of her own home address. Obviously, Gideon points out the fact that this is meant for suspects, but at the same time, Murphy's like, that doesn't matter. This is still, like, too much. The fact is, like, yeah, the guy's a little nuts, but he's right. You should have something like this. If you've ever seen the show Person of Interest, which I know I've covered the final season of it for the podcast, like, overall, like, I'm not even telling you to watch shows. Just watch the show. If you've never watched Person of Interest, fantastic show. I think the entirety of it's on Netflix, so, it's a little promotion for it. It's like a very, very good show. I think CBS from time to time still airs reruns like super early in the morning. But nevertheless, the point before I get the chat is like the fact is that in that show there's the whole concept of that, like the whole like privacy thing. That basically the premise of the show, there's a machine that basically can tap into like surveillance and knows all this information about you. So it's like it can be like it's a situation where it's like it's something that can be used for good. As you can see in this case, it's like, yeah, if you need to track down a criminal, know everything there is to know about a criminal, this system could pull all that information and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, it can be used for good. But as you saw with Murphy, it can obviously be used for bad too. Get it in the wrong hands, the wrong type of person could do whatever they want to with that information. The last thing you want is a bad guy to have this infinite amount of information. Take Murphy, for example. She's a cop. For people to know, like, you know, if a bad guy got that and like had a grudge against Murphy, they know exactly where she lived because they'd be able to tap all the information, like pull all this information about her. So it's something that obviously it started off with the best of intentions, but even then, like even bad guys have their rights and they don't, there's a right way to go about things, and this is not it. But also the other side of it too is the fact is it could be used for evil. Like, yes, you like that's the thing, and that's kind of the same thing with a person of interest comparison. It's like the machine started off with the best of interest, but then there's the whole trampling on privacy issues, and then also like what if someone else got access to it, what that could mean, what kind of dangers that might create. So even Gideon admitted, he's like, yeah, okay, like it is kind of a bad idea. You're right. Which, in his events, he even says it himself, like, it's because he lost Sully. He's like, I'm not really big into losing. And the fact is that I lost, like, one of my best friends. And, I just never wanted to kind of go through that again, or like have anyone ever go through that. Which Murphy's like, losing people is part of the job and everything. I know it sucks, but this isn't the way to go about it. But, Murphy, she's like, apology accepted. She's like, I know that your heart was in the right place. Obviously, it was misguided, but still, like, your heart was in the right place. You were trying to do the right thing. So there was validity to what the bad guy was saying, which obviously we know it's Danny. From the very beginning, it's like, it's no surprise it's Danny. It's very interesting to see his tactics in play. Because it's something that we've obviously later on finding out in the episode that he has officially lost it. That was actually something the guy last episode was bringing up. He's like, yeah, last thing you want to do is messing with Danny. Danny's unstable right now. To the point when he was meeting up with those random dudes at the beginning, he ended up killing one of them because the guy was like, yo, I want a bigger cut. Ended up shooting one of them with like a gun he had set up, just willing to just kill anyone. Because he's thinking, like, I'm doing this world justice. Like, I'm getting rid of a very bad person who's quickly going to change everything so that it suits him. It's turned into a police state and stuff like that. Trampling on people's rights and privacy with his drones and the way he goes about getting confessions and stuff. Like, obviously, like I said, that's been an issue in the past about, like, how Gideon's kind of going about some of the stuff. Like, very unconventional means of tracking people down and stuff like that, surveillance and stuff like that. It's things stacked on top of each other. Like, you understand where he's coming from, but he's pushing them to such extreme levels that he's willing to do such, like, even if he didn't mean, like, even if those were, like, obviously red herrings, the fact of the matter is you kind of swept the city up in a panic just because you're trying to prove a point. You don't know what you starting a panic can do. That means there are probably people, it turned to a panic situation. There might be, and you know what happens in panicky situations? People panic and people get killed in those type of situations, whether it's like crowds of people running from something and end up trampling over someone. It's like one great example of that. And it's like, just because he's so adamant about proving his point, he's willing to do that and like go as far as killing one of the people you hired to do it. Like, to me, it's like, I wouldn't think money would matter to you, even if you had to pay more to the person. It's like, to me, I guess, like, I would be like, well, for you, you're not in this for the money, you're in this for this, I guess at the same time, it's like him asking for more money. It's like, hey, you're not loyal to the cause, which obviously they're not loyal to the cause because you're paying them money to begin with to be a part of it. Like, I don't know. There's just so many different levels to that. I just don't quite, I don't know. And you end up finding out from Ada later on that actually, like, because she kind of forced his hand last episode with the hacker group that he was with and kind of made it so that he had to back down for their sake. At least that's what I'm like. The people kind of forced him to back down because it's like what the dirt she ended up digging up on. Well, apparently she looked into it and those guys are dead. It's like, this is the hacker group you're working with, but you ended up killing them. Because I guess in his twisted mind, it's like, no, the fact of the matter is you guys are backing down. This is a greater evil. We're fighting this great fight and you're backing down. It's like you're too weak to do what's needed to be done. So I need you out of the way. This way you don't have to worry about there being ramifications of whatever, Ada might put out there. The fact of the matter is you're dead, so it's no longer an issue. So it's like, did he kill the group? Like, to me, that seems like it is saying that he killed the, command alt group he was working with. I don't know if, like, obviously we saw a small scale operation. I don't know if it's just them or not, because Ada kind of gave a little more context to her and Danny's past. Fact is, they were hackers that grew up, they were like friends and everything, until he got into the more bad side of hacking, of like, the black hat side of hacking, where it's just kind of like tapping into certain things that you shouldn't have, like you shouldn't be digging into, just because of like becoming kind of a activist in a sense, but not even just being an activist, like being like in a situation like this, you could borderline put what he's doing as terror, like terrorist level type of stuff. Like, obviously even Gideon kind of pushes that side. I'm not really a terrorist. Obviously, it's just some punk who's just running his mouth and trying to spark something. But like I said, just shows you just where Danny's mentality is, just because he's so adamant that he's the hero in this story, that he's doing the right thing, that he's kind of willing to cross any line. I mean, when it's all said and done, like Gideon basically making like a battery into like one of the batteries that powers like his smart house into a bomb, so it explodes it, because basically Brant and Goss had showed up because obviously, like I said, Brant just kept feeling like something was off. And I do love the fact is that he had this robot Gertrude kind of be able to send out a message, and Murphy told him what to send. It was basically a message that only Brant could do, because I forgot about it earlier in the season. Murphy had brought up the fact is that her and Brant were on, like, they were rookies together, so they were partnered up. I was like, until she brought that, I was like, oh, right. She brought that up like earlier in the season. So it's like she sent a message that only he would get at Gertrude, because Gertrude was so close to sending out the message that they needed earlier in the episode. But they tracked her down before, like, the bad guys got to her before. And also, side note, obviously the three guys we saw were the three guys that were a part. I'm guessing like the operation's a lot bigger than what I thought, because they only caught the three guys that attacked Gideon's place are the ones we saw at the beginning of the episode, but there were other people involved with the red mask part, this whole thing. So are they hired guns, or what, are they like actual bad people that were hired to do this, or were they just people that didn't realize? No, because it can't just be like people who didn't realize what they were doing, because they were running from the cops. So it's like they've got to be bad people that were drawn into this. Maybe there are other hackers too. Like some of them might be hackers, others might, like the three guys at the beginning, it seemed like they're more of the hired gun type. So maybe it's a mixture of those. So Danny's got his, like, as we see, like, because we never got to see the full operation, because not all of them were actual, I'm pretty sure the people that were arrested at Gideon's place are the three from the beginning. So obviously he's expending them on. I mean, being a hacker and everything, I guess he's kind of got unlimited funds. And even if he doesn't, I guess he can fake it until he gets what he wants, because to him, even if this whole situation ends with him dying, at the very least he got his message across. He started a revolution. He sparked something, so that even if he fails, there will be others going after Gideon. I mean, to the point, he's literally challenging Gideon. He's like, mask is off, gloves are off, come get me if you want to. Obviously, like I was bringing up earlier, Ada basically finally told everyone the truth, which Gideon's like, why didn't you tell me earlier? And it's like, yeah, like I figured she's like, I thought I had it handled and everything, which is kind of the point I was bringing up last episode. Obviously, we know this, but even before then, I was like, this is a situation where she should tell Gideon, because obviously it involves him, but obviously she wouldn't want to admit it, because obviously she admitted to what happened, which Murphy was pissed about. She's like, the fact is that dude died in this, that explosion and everything, that means it was caused by someone. So it's like, yeah, worry about getting fired or quitting. It's like, it's beyond that. You're getting arrested, which you have Gideon kind of being like, no. Before things kind of went to the message at the end of the episode, he wanted to kind of tell Murphy to kind of, it's like, it was a situation where I'm thinking Gideon's going to cut her a little slack, because he's like, she was in a very bad situation. I mean, because he already knew the situation was kind of bad, and now he really, now piecing together, it's like, this is the situation that you quit on me for, because you didn't want to tell me. It's like, but you should have told me. So like, because Gideon, like, he already made it apparent last episode. It's like, if you tell me, I can help you with this. But she felt like, last thing is, she didn't want to draw him in any further, because like, again, her mind is like, this is all on me. I'm the one that made this decision. I went to Danny for help. I like forced his hand in this situation, and it's like, I shouldn't have done that. It's one of those situations where it's like, at the time it was like, it was a desperate situation, like, but I mean, I don't know, like, because it's definitely going to get interesting next episode, because already in this episode we had the mayor getting on Gideon. He's like, hey, if anyone gets hurt, this is all on you. I'm going to throw you under the bus. So obviously caught little sneak peeks of the preview, and it seems like I get the feeling like that's going to be a heavy story element, because it's like probably, obviously like the battery explosion got rid of everything Gideon was working on, which he's fine with, because the fact of the matter is it's like, I shouldn't have been making that in the first place, which Danny's like, okay, the world won't know what you were up to, but he's like, I'm still going to prove who you are, I guess, is kind of what Danny's. I mean, it seems like it might even not even stop there. It seems like he will go to whatever lengths he needs to take Gideon down, going as far as probably killing him. And as we already know, like, killing people isn't beyond him. I mean, besides just threatening Ada last episode, as we saw, he killed people this episode. One of them, but obviously we also heard from Ada, like I said earlier, the other people he's killed. So he's not afraid to cross that line. I'm wondering, could that guy that helped Ada out last episode be, I mean, he might not know that necessarily that's where Ada got the information to come after him last episode, but maybe he will, and maybe that'd be something we'll see kind of come up next episode too. So, because to me, my whole mindset was like, okay, when it's all said and done, what's going to happen is they're going to force Command Alt to be like, yo, you need actually be better off for you to distance yourself from Danny, cut him off and stuff like that. But it seems like obviously that was kind of the plan a little bit with what Ada was doing, but it didn't necessarily work out. Like, I thought it was going to be a situation where it's like Danny went above and beyond and kept going, and then they'd have to reel him back in or do something, blacklist him or something, like have basically, and like I said, it seems like it's a small group. It might be a much larger group, but for now, it just, from what we've seen of it a little bit, it seems like one isolated small group. So they might not have the power to do something like that. I don't know. We would just really have to see what goes down in the next episode. Little side note, it's just kind of a little small interesting thing I appreciate. The fact is that Gertrude, like, she's important to Gideon, because the fact is that she is the first robot that he ever built, so that's why he keeps her. Like, obviously he made sure to get her repaired by the end of the episode. It was like a little sweet thing of just like, not, it's a situation where it's like you don't forget your roots. It's like that's kind of where a lot of where he is now started, so obviously he wouldn't do that. So I know I'm very interested to see what this kind of since it's kind of sitting there in my brain, it's like, since he's so big on trying to take down Gideon, will this go all the way to get the Reeves Industry? Will he try to start there, try to destroy, blow up the building or something like that? I don't know. And how much of a backlash this is going to have on Gideon. Like I brought up earlier, the mayor, I'm sure he's going to be heavily involved at. Probably when it's all said and done, we're probably going to have Gideon probably getting fired from being the boss. That basically this might even put the District 13 in a situation where the station might get shut down, because it's like with Gideon going, they lost their funding, or maybe like Gideon's mistakes are latched on to the 13. I mean, that's kind of the mentality Danny had. It's like he's taking, because he's like, I'm taking down Gideon and the 13 and anyone that's in my way. So it's like they're just cops doing their job, but like I said, because they're cops sided with Gideon, he has his idea of who Gideon is. Gideon has his misguided thoughts, but the fact of the matter is, the person you thought he was, like, he could have been that person, because Lauren was kind of pushing him to kind of be that person with the whole APB Prime thing, but the fact of the matter is, it wasn't. He's just a dude that was hurt, that basically took the money he has and put it towards to good, helping more, making it so that police can help a lot more people, so I like I say, I can kind of understand where his mentality is. Like, I've kind of brought that up in the past. Like, I slightly understand that, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like you have to look a little above the surface. Like, I feel like he's just looking above the surface, not really looking at everything, the good that comes from it. But, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Is, I'm sure, like something that's just kind of rattling around in his brain. So, but overall, very, very good episode. And next week is the season finale, so I am very curious to see how this all plays out. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.